We still have Modi, bound to run the country for a third term, which is a very significant result. But yes, not what people expected. And by all counts, it's really what we see in the U.S. too. People voting on the basis of how they on daily life, economics, prices of food, job opportunities. Right. India has a very large youth population, high levels of unemployment amongst young people, and problems when it comes to those level of jobs, education, and health. And so that is a signal. And we will see an India in which Modi has to govern slightly differently than the last several years.
Leslie, you staggered through Wesleyan before you did LSE, and you learned humility about polling. Does Leslie Vinjamuri trust the polling in America?
The polling is fine for what it is, but don't draw a direct line from polling to whether you or I or our children or our neighbors or our friends get up and vote. And we all know that this, more than anything else, is an election that is about are they enthusiastic? Are they passionate enough to either vote for or, in effect, vote against Biden and Trump? Will they get out of bed? Will they vote? And especially, will those voters that matter in those states that matter vote? So sure, the polling's, it's interesting. Not a lot more than that at this stage, this many months out, and it doesn't tell us what we need to know, which is how inspired, how passionate are people. So the things I would look at is young voters in swing states. Are they going to be mobilized to, in effect, vote against Biden because of the war in Gaza? Do they care about climate change? Therefore, they'll turn up for President Biden. How much are voters in the manufacturing sector still feeling the pressure on a daily basis of inflation? That would drive them to, be enthusiastic to vote for Donald Trump, not for any rational reason, but as a vote against Biden. So there's lots of uncertainty here. We kind of know what matters, but no, the polling doesn't really, it gives us something to talk about for many, many months. We have a long way to go.
Well, yeah, Leslie, I'd love to ask you about these elections in India, South Africa, and Mexico, but you went to Israel, so let's just go there. Israel Hezbollah rhetoric is heating up. Benny Gantz saying Israel will return residents to the north by step one, either through a deal or escalation. We've got wildfires in the north due to Hezbollah drone and rocket attacks. More than 60,000 Israelis remain displaced. Talk to us about what comes next in Israel.
Yeah, there is not a clear path forward in this war. We're seeing Netanyahu doubling down on the war effort in Rafah, to the great backlash from much of the rest of the world. We're seeing more pressure on President Biden and others to really try and get Israel to exercise restraint, but not a lot of that happening right now. We have this wild card of the International Criminal Court that's likely to confirm an arrest warrant on the Israeli prime minister, which again, from all counts, is actually leading many Israelis to gather around, who their prime minister's not been very popular, but this is actually working against that. So all sorts of wild cards, but it's at the moment, there is no clear sense that a deal is going to be delivered. That the war is going to result in what everybody thinks needs to happen, which is a two-state solution. And there is that concern about what's going to happen between Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon.
Leslie, I may not think this way. You may not think this way, but from where I sit, most of America feels that a vote for the Republican Party for Donald Trump is a vote for Israel, and vice versa. A vote, for the Democratic Party is a vote against Israel. Is that something, is that real? Do you believe that? Is that the way the U.S. Election is headed right now?
I don't think that young voters see that. They see a president in President Biden who's been very pro-Israel, and a party that's very divided. Certainly has a progressive wing that wants to move in a different direction when it comes to America's support of Israel. But that has not been, just in terms of America's military support of Israel, that's not at all been the case. So I think that the story is much more complicated in terms of whether the Democratic Party, if President Biden were reelected, will pull back some of that support. Very hard to say. I think in the medium term, in a longer lifespan, America's support of Israel is likely to diminish.